Hello, Dr. Mike here with Introduction to Operating Systems, and this will be a topic on Windows 7. Currently, as of this recording, the textbook is Chapter 4. As before I stated, I'm not going to go over this entire chapter. In fact, I'm not going to go over too much on Windows 7, just some core things I think we should probably highlight and then talk about. Um, so why is that? Well, there's a big section in this chapter about installing Windows 7. And as of this recording date, September 1st and 2020, Windows 7 is still out there. There is actually some market share data showing about 26%. This is net market share. This of course, is what their data shows, but other ZDNet, other sites, and have shown 20% install base. Now, Windows 10 is definitely taken a ramp up, 56% by this data set here. So let's just say over 50%, and it's going to grow. And this, of course, we're talking about servers, probably servers, application servers, things like that, and probably companies that have Windows 7 where they have internal apps that do not run on Windows 10, and they don't want to spend the money and time to make a new version of that app. And it sounds funny, but I've seen that a lot. It happens a lot. So, and they can't run virtualization and just a lot of things, a lot of contingencies there. So they just keep Windows 7, and just also the cost. They don't want to pay to upgrade. They might have privacy concerns. Mainly, though, I think it's going to be the applications. We don't want to upgrade our apps. And of course, this numbers are going to be shrinking greatly more and more over time. But again, you might find yourself in a new field, an IT field, support, let's say, and you're dealing with Windows 7. So I don't think I'll be installing it too much. Look over the chapter, though. It does talk about installation. If you find yourself reinstalling Windows 7, I'd be very surprised. But be aware there is some requirements, and there is 32-bit and 64-bit. We talked about that previously, specifically with architectures, so on topic 1. So there's 32-bit version Windows 7. My chances are it'll be 64-bit. And there's also different retail editions, as well as enterprise editions, home, premium, professional, ultimate. And these editions have different service packs. So you should always have the latest service pack, which is like basically an install version of the operating system with some pre-packaged patches, security and just operating system patches. So you can see there's professional, enterprise, ultimate, and those editions had different features. XP mode, which I think is actually gone, but XP mode was basically a small virtualization layer for XP to run XP in Windows 7. And after you actually seen a business where they needed to run that for a milling operation that had some old software that was running XP, they got a new desktop PC and it will not run in Windows 7. They don't want to pay the $1,000 or more to get it again, so they got it in XP mode. Again, this is a long time ago, but still, you can see where it would work. BitLocker, we'll talk about that as a feature, which is encryption. That's only an ultimate. So, professional, of course, domain joining, as we know, is Active Directories. So, again, look at the textbook. It's going to go over installation, at least thumb through it, get an idea about it, and how it looks when you install. Here's a step-by-step. I'm not going to cover that here. Again, I really believe you will not really do installation in Windows 7 very often, and even less and less over time. So let's move on here. So I have a copy of Windows 7 here in my virtual machine to get some demo, but most of the stuff we'll see in Windows 10. So I'm really going to also brush over the Windows desktop features. Windows 10 did bring some of these over, like pinning and shortcuts, jump lists. Textbook has some examples of this. Right-clicking on something in your start menu is what it means. You can see the previous documents. And that's in a lot of operating systems actually. I think even my Linux laptop has got something like that with the Pop OS. Even the Mac has stuff like that. If I right click on like preview, I can see previous things. So these features have definitely been spread out among several operating systems. Pinning is placing something here on your taskbar there. Again, you can right click on stuff, and if anything that comes out of this sort of summarized slide deck is look at right clicking on something and right click properties. So that's probably one of the main threads I want to bring out of this is that. So right clicking and right click properties. So right clicking, again, I can see frequent stuff here, documents, and then and if I right click on documents, there's create something here, my documents. Right clicking gives you, again, stuff, folder, class. Again, right click, properties. So right clicking is going to really open up a lot of stuff in Windows 7 and Windows 10. And right click properties will also add some stuff here. Let's do a new text document called 1107. So other things we have is the Action Center. This is also covered in Windows 10. This was something that would pop up down here. We have some Action Center here. So this is pretty good. It's a good way to highlight some immediate issues. It could be updates that have been run, or you need to have a restart, antivirus is not installed or hasn't run, or in this case, set up a backup. So Action Center, this has got all kinds of red on the board, don't we have here? Maintenance, security, definitely stuff you would want to look at. Definitely address Action Center items. And if they're not of any value, you should be able to clear those Action Center items as not valid. So Windows, they bring some libraries in. It's just a way to sort of help organize your documents. And we see this now everywhere. Again, even Mac, Linux. You have the users home directory, and in there you'll have documents like My Documents, music, pictures, videos, and it's a way to go and do that. And then you can organize it here too with favorites as well in the Explorer. So file systems themselves. Now we briefly talked about this again way back on topic 1, but how file systems, how our computer actually carves up our hard drive. Way back, FAT32 was the common for early Windows 7. Again, it has limitations, both with issues with the file size only being a couple gig. You only have a max file size, and I think 3.4, 3.2 gig, 3.4 gig, something like that. It was, so, and then back then the 3 gigabyte file was unheard of. Nowadays, you can easily find a 4 gigabyte file. So there's ways to, in the chapter talks about, there's ways to, as you updated Windows 7, you could update the underlying file system to NTFS. So FAT32. NTFS again brought master file table, compression, encryption, better indexing, change tracking. As change tracking is for recoverability, called journaling, things like that. So again, the chapter shows there was a way to do it if you upgraded your old system. Again, I doubt we'll ever do this, but just keep that in mind. This was the OS that bridged FAT32 and NTFS, so there were some utilities in place to help take that transition. You can also work with optical disks. This was sort of a weird way to really create a rewritable CD image, and also take the image file and copy it to, in this case, an actual disk. So this is the time when Windows 7 came out. You could actually burn CD-ROMs, and so it had the ability to do that. Security, definitely some improvements there. Improved account user controls. BitLocker, again, is only an ultimate, and BitLocker to go. BitLocker is basically encrypting the home directory. So as we saw here, my documents, the documents, my libraries here, you encrypt your home directory, which is under C users, and you can see it's protected right now. If you do properties, security, you'll see information about there too. We're going to come back to this in a second here. Windows Defender. So this is a talk about security here. Windows Defender, in the sense of, in the realm of Windows 7, was sort of an anti-malware scanner, not really malware, anti-spyware scanner. It was sort of a weird creature when it came out. And then back when Windows 7 was the copy of Windows you had, you could upgrade it and get Windows Security Essentials. You would download it and it would upgrade Defender to Windows Security Essentials. Now, Windows 10 is the main OS. There's no more Windows Security Essentials, and Windows Defender is really everything you need. So I will say this as a side note from my experience, Windows to Windows 10. In Windows 10, Windows Defender is probably the best you need. You don't need anything else. In fact, running more than one antivirus is ill-advised. You actually have more issues. And a lot of times if you install a third party, which is fine, if you install a third party antivirus, Windows Defender will actually turn itself off to allow the third party to run and take over the antivirus duties, so endpoint security duties. So on that, again, when we talk about Windows Defender, we're talking about in the aspects of Windows 7. So back in the day, again, Windows Defender was the one thing. Windows Security Essentials could be downloaded, and it would allow you to have a full endpoint security. So there was recovery tools, DVD, later on bootable USB. We see now a lot of operating systems have this built into a bootable sector on the hard drive, but it also is good to have a bootable media at the time in case your hard drive really had issues. And there's some recovery tools there. So I think it was like you would tap F7 or something like that, or F2 on the keyboard, whatever it is, you'll be able to get to this recovery menu here. And Start Repair is probably the most common. Basically, and it did a pretty good job of going through and checking as it booted and would repair registry issues, things like that, maybe fall back on different driver versions. You can actually restore your system or image recovery, and then there's diagnostics and an actual command prompt. This actually exists in Windows 10. We'll see it later. It looks a little different. So look and feel looks a little different. So customizing. Probably the biggest thing here is managing. I think I skipped over a bunch of the customizing slides. Computer management. So you probably noticed I clicked on the Start menu and I looked at the use the Find or Run button there. Great way to find stuff. Computer management. It's a great way to see users. And here you can, of course, add a user if I want to be. You want to add a new user, you could do it there. Also, let's talk about the main thing we'll see in both Windows 7 and Windows 10 is Control Panel. This is probably the two main Control Panel and computer management, the two main areas you use for managing your Windows 7 install. In here, of course, you can do things like remove applications. I let this slide in because of a note, and we'll see this, of course, in other versions of Windows, is if you buy a new computer, Windows computer, from a retailer, it might have something called bloatware. Bloatware is sort of trial versions of software that the seller has been paid money to have sort of preloaded on their computer. And it could be a pain. And it's a good idea to clean this stuff off if you're not going to use it. And to clean stuff off a computer, you don't want to just delete it, like go to File Manager, find it, delete it. You want to be able to use uninstall a program. It's good to use this, have a clean uninstall. If it's not here, which is not much on this computer, of course, look at the Start menu entry for that application. See, there's an uninstall program for it. So either one is the best way to do it. This is actually one here too, is managing components. So this is actually a hidden area, Windows features. So let's go back to Control Panel. If I do Windows features, you can see here there's stuff that is sort of underlying to the operating system that can be installed or removed, like Telnet clients, FTP clients, and so on. Games. You got to have Solitaire. Now, if you go to install this, it might ask for the install media. And this is going to depend upon the feature. So I'm not sure if this will work or not. Looks like that may have worked. Let's see. Do I have? I do have Solitaire now. So now Solitaire exists. All right, cool, huh? So again, that's Windows features. It also exists in Windows 10. So again, look for this. And again, the best way is to search for it. Just do search for Windows features. It's buried somewhere under the control panel. And yes, you could definitely hunt and peck for it. I use the search features. They're built into both either the start menu or on the control panel app itself. So file management, hopefully it's something that everyone is used to here. I'm not going to go too much into this. Realize there is a folder hierarchy. And we look at our program files. We have program files and program files x86. Reason why you see both, one was for 32-bit and program files was for 64-bit. So the x86 was for 32-bit programs. Windows can support 32-bit applications, even on, of course, on a 64-bit system. So it would be placed in, had to install them separately. That's probably the main features. And another one, of course, the thing is Windows users is where your accounts are at, and it's under the C drive. And of course, there's C Windows. This is called a path. System 32. We're going to come back to this later in the course. This is your heart of your system. And in case you don't know, why is it called the C drive? Quick note here, the history. So when you first bought computers back in the day, they had floppy disks. And floppies were the A drive. And a lot of times you have two floppy drives. If you were pretty cool, you had two floppy disks. One would be for the operating system, and B drive would be for, application disk, data disk, things like that. This you would interchange and use. You leave the operating system disk in a lot of the times in your A drive. And so when hard drives came out, they created the C drive, ABC. So that sort of stuck, and that's where it's been. Has not changed since then. So keep those in mind. Those specific directories, users, Windows System 32, program files. There's some other hidden directories inside here. Let's talk about this Windows Explorer. You can organize the layout, which I like adding the menu bar myself. Again, this is Windows 7, and also search options, which you can view. There are things called hidden files and folders, and all operating systems have this, Linux, Mac. And the idea is these are areas that, and I'll hit apply, these are areas that are in, here we go, select app data. It's hard to tell, it's a little bit grayed out. Let's do view. Let's make the larger icons here. Okay, there we go. And then we'll come over the best of this video, but it's sort of grayed out. App data is a hidden folder. And the idea is, it's not hidden because they want to be sneaky. It's hidden because normally as an end user, you don't really deal with this stuff. It's for applications they use. But it is there. So if you see this again, this is called a path. C, user ID, app data. And you're like, I don't see that folder. Make sure you look at your settings. And make sure you can view hidden files and folders. So that's one of the main ones you might run into, and we're going to come back to that later in the course when we look at deeper into the Windows system. So customizing, managing. So again, control panel is your mainstay, or computer management, and user accounts. I believe the lab this week at the time of this recording has you add in a user account. So you can probably guess, go to control panel, and do a search for, and actually it's right there, user accounts, and you can add or remove user accounts. And you notice this little shield here, this little coat of arms. What does that mean, right? So that is for, let's say, that indicates admin level access. So, and it's going to depend upon, there's something called UAC setting, user account control. You'll get a little prompt saying, are you sure you want to do this? And if you're not admin user, it'll actually prompt you and say, well, enter some admin credentials. Credentials being what? Username and password. So administrator and password. It's a way to sort of protect a user account that's not an administrator from doing admin functions. So what does that mean? So we can see here, when you create an account, you have different types. We have a standard user and administrator. You need to have at least one administrator account per system. And then you can have other accounts that are standard. So standard, as you can read here, basically standard accounts can't change too much system settings or major system configurations. Mostly just deal with their own account specifics. Administrator, of course, has full control to do whatever they want. So you add an account, and if it says make a local account or a standard account or administrator account, look at the steps, make sure you follow those. Very important. You don't want to create an account for somebody as admin when they don't need to be. The idea is, again, it's least privilege. You don't want to give someone more account privilege than they actually need. UAC, this is the thing that triggers off. If I do user account, let's see, yeah, account. There we go. So user account control settings. It's a little slider here. This is the one that's going to come up and annoy you and everything. Always notify. If I do this, that's what it means. Are you sure I want this to take place? Now if I do it, watch, it should get, do you want this to take place? So this is that little bug thing. Default. Again, now if I click on it, I don't get it right. Most of the time, default's fine. Always notify, it doesn't make any sense unless you're really paranoid. Don't turn it off though. The idea is if I was to download something and it executed by accident and it was malicious in nature, or it somehow executed on its own and it wanted to do something, this would prompt me and I can go, wait a minute, I didn't want this thing to do any changes to my system. No, don't do it. Click no, click cancel. And of course, I don't want too high because it'd be a little buggy. A little note on that: Windows Vista back in the day was known to be really bad on this. It almost was set too high when it came out, and people were like, it got tiresome of it. So Windows 7, they tweaked it to just the right level. Again, leave it where it is. That's what user account control UAC is. Let's look at security. Now, probably the biggest one we see here is with, let's look at my documents, classes. Permissions, file and folders have permissions. And this is called an access control list. This ACL has an access control entry. It looks like this. And I'll just bring it up here. But your properties, security. So right click, properties. And you can see here, I can change, I can add a user and give them specific permissions. You can get more advanced. There's auditing, effective permissions. Most of you don't need to deal with this, but right here, if I want to make a folder that's read-only, so let's say a new folder, call it row, read-only, right-click, properties, security. I want to change this, let's say for myself. So there's no full control. Special permissions. So you go through, you can say, well, no writing, they can list, read executes okay. So there we go. I didn't read that, I should have. So you can see I can create a folder that's read only. Now this could be good if you have a public folder or a public folder out in the public space that other users can read. And maybe it's going to contain files you don't want them to change. And think about permissions is, these permissions, they sort of cascade. So in other words, if I create a file in here now, okay, I can't do anything with this read-only. If I was to go in this file, if I was to create a file inside here, with read privileges, it should inherit these permissions, and that's something NTFS does. It uses permission inheritance, and it should take these permissions into the files. Now again, files are the same thing. Right-click, security, you'll see the same access control list. It might look a little different for a folder versus a file, but again, this is the ACL right here, and it allows you finer grained control of allow or deny specific actions: modify, full control, read, execute, list, read, and write. So, and you can do it by person or by group. That's an important aspect there. So if I have a group called tester and a group called developer, I want developers to be able to read and write. I want testers to be able to read only. So you can take this sort of business rules and you can apply a technical control to those. So those again are listed. So if anything from this chapter, take this out is the right-click and look at stuff. Right-click properties specifically, but right-click has a good flat menu on everything in Windows. But properties is going to expose some underlying features like security, like this ACL here, and what you can do with it. So again, NTFS inherits these permissions, which is nice. So I can change it on a folder, and everything underneath that folder should inherit those permissions. BitLocker. So we'll wrap up here real soon here. BitLocker, basically, you could turn it on if you have the feature. Good for, it was actually a great idea for mobile, your mobile disks, right? Your mobile disk, your thumb drives, these type of things. But if you had sensitive data on these and they got lost, that could be of a security issue. So BitLocker give you the ability to go ahead and handle that. And of course, you can do BitLocker on your home directory too. So again, Windows Defender. Again, in the aspect of Windows 7, it's anti-spyware. Nowadays in Windows 10, it's a full-on antivirus scanner, endpoint security. And from my personal and professional experience with it, trying to write hacks to get around it, Windows Defender and Windows 10 is superior. There's no need to pay for endpoint security, in my opinion. Again, and the idea is here is it would disable when other security software is installed. The idea here, and this does carry over, you don't want two antiviruses running. There's no such thing as layered antiviruses. You just actually end up causing issues. So again, you can see that. Again, this is Windows 7 now. Security Essentials, back in the day, was something you could download for free and install. Now it comes pre-rolled into Windows 10. The firewall, we discussed firewalls and during security. You can see those. Again, go to Control Panel and look for firewall. And most of the time, as long as it's on, you're good. And this applies also to Windows 10. Again, I think I'm going to have two areas here. When you install an application and you get that UAC that says, do you allow this application to make changes? The reason why you want to do that is if the application needs to open certain firewall ports to allow communication, maybe for updates. So it's pretty much handled by the operating system for you. So Windows will allow the application to make any changes needed. You can get into some advanced settings though, if you really wanted to create your own rules for inbound and outbound connections. These could be by groups, by profiles. Usually it's tied to some sort of service, like which is tied to a protocol. HTTP, for example, is a protocol. We know that from the web. It's tied to a port 80. I can either allow or disallow port 80. Now that, of course, would be a bummer. You can't use a web browser, right? Or HTTPS, which is port 443. Again, most time, as an introduction to operating systems, know how to find the status of it and how to modify the status if you need be. But most time, it's going to be sure it's on and it's running. So, and that wraps up the topics I want to cover here for the chapter. Look at the summary here. There's stuff I didn't cover. I didn't cover File transfer, I didn't cover a lot of the customized stuff. Again, make sure you review the chapter material, but I think what I just covered is probably the most important aspects of Windows 7. And again, a lot of these aspects we're going to see again in Windows 10, just maybe look a little different. So anyways, that wraps up the topic, Introduction to Operating Systems, Windows 7. Thank you.